I would love to start this video off by a passage from this book, Meditations from the Mat. Many of us have spent years trying to ameliorate the world's suffering without first confronting our own.
Hi, Taylor.
The belief that it is possible to heal the world without healing ourselves first is what the Yoga Sutras call a lack of true knowledge. The truth is, when we are happy, we spread happiness, and when we are in pain, we spread suffering. If our aim is to alleviate the world's suffering, we must begin with our own minds and bodies. With each step we take toward the light, the universe rejoices. When we let go of our suffering, we participate in the salvation of all living beings. I have been going through conflict this month, and it has been showing me areas of my personality where I still operate from a place of fear and from a place of lack. And often with these fears underneath, what manifests on the surface is this defensiveness, this wanting to be right, this wanting to win, this aversion to listening and wanting to put someone else out of my heart. The reason why I want to call this channel a loving friend is so that I could constantly be inspired to grow in that way, to choose softening instead of hardening is something I'm probably going to work towards for the rest of my life. But I feel so determined, so devoted to this path because I know how much it benefits me when I do, when I stay on path. And in this video, I want to share some things that I have been doing to help during those inevitable, difficult, dark times that any of us humans find ourselves in. Each chapter starts with a quote, and this chapter, called Sensing Love from Nature, starts with this. Such love does the sky pour out that whenever I stand in a field, when I get home, I have to wring out my clothes. I'm gonna leave my stuff here really quickly and then frolic through this forest because hello, it's lined with pine needles, super comfy to walk on. And the color palette. Let me adjust the lighting. There we go. I hope from this clip you could feel the stillness and the geese. I really love this place, really. Like everything about this landscape makes me so happy, with the vines on the floor and then the pine needle trails and just how the trees open up to that field. I want to talk a little bit more about this book, A Field Guide to Nature Meditation. If you love nature and you want to further deepen your relationship with nature through different practices and different perspectives, this is such a handy book, and honestly such a heart-softening book. There's this chapter called Dissolving Boundaries of Self, and I feel like for me it really accurately reflects why nature is so healing and impactful for me. One of the hidden joys in nature is we come into the presence of wild things who are not lost in stories and drama about themselves. Stepping away from the human, ego-centered world, we enter a natural habitat that is peaceful, free from the fretting and angst about me and my life that engulfs most of us a lot of the time. As we immerse more outdoors with mindful awareness, we can momentarily and happily put our personal narratives down and instead literally lose ourselves inside a sensory world. We enter fully into the moment, not lost in machinations about our own dramas, but instead absorb into nature's beauty and serenity. Even momentarily releasing our self-preoccupation, releasing the sense of self in favor of being fully attuned to life around us, is what mystical traditions have pointed to millennia as a key doorway to peace and happiness. Nature's invitation makes this process much easier. We can see how our sense of self, which seems so solid and real, is really just another aspect of nature that comes and goes, no more real than the thoughts that perpetuate it. The less attention we give it, the more space and ease we feel.
My cup of Tuesday tea.
Or also known as holy basil. I want to share it with you guys. Tulsi tea. So Tulsi tea is adaptogenic, which I looked up the definition of it, adaptogenic, and it literally means something that helps us regulate cortisol or stress. This Tulsi tea has come in clutch for me a lot during difficult conversations throughout this month, high tension or like post-conflict where the stress is living in my body and I feel like I have a hard time moving on and letting it go. Tulsi tea, okay? Tulsi tea is the way. But I did read online that if you are trying to get pregnant, or I don't know, there are like certain effects for adaptogenics. Each one is different. That is Cheddar over there sleeping. I feel like my eyes are kind of dry. I want to share a pretty crazy revelation I've had over the past several months about self-compassion and how my relationship with self-compassion, or the lack of, has caused me to become more angry, more jaded, more cynical, and less loving. So I thought for the longest time, for the majority of my life, that I was very self-compassionate towards myself. But what I was actually mistaking was that I thought that me convincing myself why I was on a moral high ground, why my perspective was right, and why I was justified in acting the way that I was, and why the other person was wrong, was a form of self-compassion. And I feel like that is kind of like the near enemy of self-compassion, because it on the surface looks like we are tending to ourselves and we're making ourselves feel better in a healthy way. But of course, after years of operating with this unhealthy and unconscious behavior, I've learned that that was not helpful at all to any type of situation that I was in. It was also a form of self-harm, because me othering or blaming other people or being very negative with my perspective on others during difficult times, it never made me feel better about myself or the situation that I was in. If anything, it just kept on highlighting or perpetuating the pain that me and the other person were transactionalizing with each other. It just fed into that cycle, and it didn't resolve anything. Just energetically, I feel like what we say to another person, what we think about of another person, how we act towards another person, is a reflection of how we act or think or treat ourselves. Because there's this metaphor of a hammer hammering a nail. And the hammer is the person who's causing harm or being vengeful towards another person, right? And the hammer thinks that they could get away from hammering the nail without any pain. But the truth is that the hammer experiences just as much pain as the nail does. So every time I was thinking or feeling with a lack of compassion, by putting the person who triggered me, who upset me, who I felt like my needs weren't met by, outside of my heart, that was deeply affecting me as well. And it also severely impacted my sense of belonging in this world, not even just in my immediate community, but just in this world. The more I fed into thoughts of me versus them, or thoughts that lacked love and understanding, the more I created a world in my head where there was a lack of love, where there was a lack of compassion, because that's how I was acting. That's what I was feeding into the air. I learned that what self-compassion actually is, it's very simple, and I feel like very profound. I've been sharing my difficult experiences to certain meditation teachers that I'm a part of Sangha with. And every time I do, they look at me with so much tenderness and love. And they ask me, "Are you okay? That must be really hard." And they basically reflect the pain that I wasn't really catching in my story back to me. And it's like, oh yeah, like that is really scary. And then as I was saying the story, I didn't even realize that I was scared, you know? From those experiences, it confirmed how important self-compassion is, especially during difficult times, because without self-compassion, we're not tending to the parts that experience the pain, that is hurt by the pain. And when we don't tend to that parts, we get more hostile towards others, because we think that that is what will make the pain stop. So when I experience a scary or hurtful moment, I've been rewiring my brain of, instead of thinking about the other person and how that person wronged me, instead of that being the first train of thought that I follow, I actually bring it back to myself. And it's been really empowering and heart softening. I say to myself, oh, that was really hard. Like, you did not deserve that. Are you okay? Yeah, like this is a really difficult experience. And on top of those words, I would add gentle touches, like giving myself a hug. One thing that I really love to do is just putting my hand on my heart and just gently rubbing. Yeah, and I'm literally reparenting myself. Like, even doing this right now, it makes me want to cry. You know, so much of my life, and probably for a lot of us, right? So much of our behaviors are, and our defensiveness is from our childhood wounds of not feeling seen or heard or validated in the ways that we have deeply yearned for. And when that is a part of our story for so long, as adults, when we have that autonomy, often we will carry those survival mechanisms into our adulthood, not because we don't know any better, but because we perceive that mechanism as it being the most effective and convenient way for the pain to stop. But then with knowledge, with experience, we learn that it's not. It's not. And even that deserves self-compassion. Even that deserves a tender hug. I actually want to share a list of things that in this book. Soothing touch. So this is the list. 1 hand over your heart, 2 hands over your heart, gently stroking your chest, cupping your hand over a fist over your heart, 1 hand on your heart and one on your belly, 2 hands on your belly, 1 hand on your cheek, cradling your face in your hands, gently stroking your arms, crossing your arms and giving yourself a gentle hug, 1 hand tenderly holding the other or cupping your hands in your lap. My favorite are the ones where I feel on my torso, like my chest or my belly. And if I know I have clean hands, then maybe I'll do the cupping of the face, but only if I know I have clean hands. Maybe I'll even pet myself on the head. I don't know. It's just like literally the soothing touch. It works so well because throughout the conflict that I was experiencing, typically in the past Whitney would let the anger rise up so fast and like lash out again. But I've been slowly integrating the soothing touches and just like whispering these tender words to myself of like, yeah, you're in pain. And this sucks and it's hard and this is difficult. Whatever phrase, words work for you. What that is doing is I'm seeing myself. I'm hearing myself. I'm validating myself. Because often I feel like the defensiveness and the wanting to protect ourselves is kind of a effort of us trying to be seen and heard by the person that we're doing those actions towards. And maybe we got it all wrong when we do that, you know? Maybe it should come from ourselves first. There's a page in here that a little box that says self-compassion should not be confused with self-esteem. So the thing that I shared before about me thinking that I was being self-compassionate when I was kind of validating my story only, my perspective only, I was confusing that with self-esteem. Self-esteem is a positive evaluation of self-worth. Self-compassion isn't a judgment or an evaluation at all. Instead, self-compassion is a way of relating to the ever-changing landscape of who we are with kindness and acceptance, especially when we fail or feel inadequate. Loving kindness, when it meets suffering, that's when compassion happens. When we see suffering, it's like, oh, like let's go towards it with loving kindness. That is compassion. So we could do that to ourselves or to other people. When we see that other people are suffering and we practice loving kindness towards them, that is us tuning into compassion. This is kind of a new journey for me. It's a little bit vulnerable because I'm not perfect or fluent in this, but I'm really working on letting go of the stories that have caused a lot of pain in my life and what I like to refer to as the self-created hell, because a lot of the times the suffering that we're going through, it is self-inflicted, it is self-caused based on our reaction or the train of thoughts that we follow or the actions or our habits. I'm slowly liberating myself, and I want to conclude this video with the passage that I started this video off with. The truth is, when we are happy, we spread happiness, and when we are in pain, we spread suffering. If our aim is to alleviate the world's suffering, we must begin with our own minds and bodies. With each step we take toward the light, the universe rejoices. When we let go of our suffering, we participate in the salvation of all living beings. Harming of others also comes back to us. The judgment of others also comes back to us. It's a judgment of ourselves in a way. What we wish upon others is what we wish upon ourselves. I feel like these statements remind us of the interconnectedness of humanity and how Yeah, like everyone is a sister or brother, even with their different views, and even though we don't resonate with each other, they're still at the end of the day a sister or a brother. It reminds me of when I'm like walking in my neighborhood and I see a big group of pigeons and I see a pigeon bullying another pigeon, and from the outside, like another species looking at their species, I'm like, why are you doing that? It doesn't make sense. And that's how probably our species looks to anyone else who's watching. It's like, what are they doing? Why are they fighting each other? Why aren't they working together? What is the point? Yeah,